Tonight I want to talk about 3 ways in which we want to live well and live a long life. Talked about that in the Waykeeping last Saturday. I talked about that last night. And I want to talk about that again today, but in a different way. The human body, which is composed of 3 parts. We are talking about your spirit, your soul, and the body that we all see. All those 3 parts need nourishment. If you don't eat, you will die of famine. If you don't feed your soul, you will die of I forgot the word. You will die of famine of the soul, starvation of the soul. And if you don't know how to feed your spirit, you will die of starvation of the spirit. Let me start by the spirit. How do I feed my spirit? Spirit is your conscience. In theology, in philosophy, we call that the intellect. That is what gives us the power to think, to reason. Spirit is what animals don't have. That is why they cannot build houses. They cannot invent cars. We have them. That's why we're able to do everything that we're able to do. But how do we feed the spirit? Because the spirit is the power that communicates with the Creator. It is the spirit that we also call your conscience. The conscience is what leads the person. And in order for you to feed your spirit so that you can live a long life, you must understand what love is. God is love. You must live the life of love. There's one resume of the entire 10 Commandments. Love one another. That's it. They asked Jesus Christ, what is the most important commandment? He said, love God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your body. And then he said, love one another as you would yourself. I'm going to tell you one thing, and I'm going to talk about the death, what caused death of the spirit. If you maltreat someone, you will be maltreated. If you don't love and you share hates, you will be hated. If you don't respect others, you will be disrespected. If you kill by the sword, you will die by the sword. That is how you feed your spirit. How we treat other people. You maltreat someone's child today. You forgot all about it. 10 years from now, you have your child. Gets up, goes to school, and a car hits your child and dies. Remember that it's 10 years back, you've maltreated that child. Someone's child. That is how it works. It's called karma for the Hindus. It's called the justice of God for Christians. And it's sometimes called nemesis. It is real. I usually take the example of a bottle on the table. In philosophy, we say there's a cost for everything. If a bottle falls off a table, nobody here will say it just fell. We will all say somebody pushed the table. Some people will even say maybe a spirit hit it. See, there is a cause for the falling of the bottle. But a bottle would never fall off the table for nothing. What happened to us don't happen for nothing. If you get up and you drink and you get drunk tonight, you take your car and drive, and you get hit or you hit someone else and you die, everybody will say that you were under the influence of alcohol. Now, that's what we call direct karma, right? What I call indirect karma is if you get up quietly in the morning, go to work, and as you go to work, you get hit in the back by a car or someone. It didn't just happen. Accident don't exist. No, it doesn't. It means there is no cause. And if there's no cause, there is no God. Everything happens for a reason. You must start asking yourself, what have I done that made me go through this pain? The reason why we suffer is because of the sin of Adam and Eve. That's why we suffer. Jesus didn't do anything. But in order for him to be crucified, in order for karma to follow Jesus, he had to carry on his back the weight of sin. He had to carry our sins in his back. That's how it works. If Jesus did not carry our sin in his back, nobody would have done anything to him, because karma is not after him. That's why you always hear people say, Jesus carried our sin in his back. He accepted that. From the moment where he was born of a woman on earth, he took on that responsibility. He carried the sin on his back in order for him to be crucified on the cross. So people will say he was crucified for nothing. He was not crucified for nothing. He was crucified because of our sins. Karma exists. If you maltreat someone, trust me, you're not going to get away with it. That's impossible. It is impossible to do so. Tonight I wanted to take an example, and I say, if we want Africa to succeed, we must do something. We were all called in this country for a reason. None of you should think you came here for nothing. You should not think that you only came here because you must build a house back in Cameroon to your family members, to those that you love. The Bible says, if you only help the people that you love, what have you done? That is amazing. You've done nothing. But if you help people where you know you are not going to get anything back, that is when you are doing something major. If we want our continent to be successful, it depends. The diaspora was sent for this. Each and every one of us is on a mission. Find your mission. Find your talent. Clear example, I was finishing my bachelor's, and my professor of philosophy, I was telling him how I started a nonprofit organization, and when I was helping orphans in Cameroon, and we had 30 children that we were helping. And we had this priest who had these 30 children who was being chased from this village in Cameroon. And I was talking about that because in a project, we were doing something about a project. My professor is very strong Catholic, so he wanted to show us something in ethics. And so I talked about that, and he was touched. Simple, me and him are very good friends now. We are going to Cameroon together next year. And he came out and he said, hey, Alex, I like your story. I like to help. And I thought it was going to be a small help. Cut the story short, he gave us $7,000 check to help that orphanage. We built the entire house. We put water, we put restroom, bathroom. I mean, you go to that orphanage today, you wouldn't recognize it. The generosity of just one person, we were able to do so much. Since that time, this was 2017, I personally say I am sponsoring at least one child per year in school in Cameroon. That is my sacrifice. If we want to succeed, if everybody here were to take one child in Cameroon that you were sponsoring, it's not going to cost you anything. There are some of you who can sponsor 20 children if you want to. But if you only take one child in Cameroon and you put him in school, you don't care about what they eat, or the family will say, no, instead of you to put him in school, give us the money and we are going to. No. You go to the school, you pay yourself. And you sponsor one child a year. I've done that since 2017. Today I'm sponsoring two children, in addition to the work we're already doing for orphanages. This is just a personal work. You will raise the education level of Cameroon to another level. And from there, things will change by itself. It's not going to be, these things are spiritual. It's not just physical. When you share love, by itself, you start to see changes. That's how it works. That is how it works. I always say when I come to do these waykeeping, I always tell you, my participation to you is that don't pay me if you want. But you guys are always generous and always give me something. But I always tell you, but every single thing I get from just coming here, trust me, is a miracle. Just doing this, what God does for me. And that's what I'm telling you. If you sponsor one child, only one person, you decide that this year or next year, whatever, that I will put one child in school only. What is it going to cost you? This year I pay 110,000 franc for each child that I sponsor this year. Do you know the love that you will be sharing Do you know the contribution you were doing in Africa? It's not about going to change government. That's not what it's about. You can have 1 million people listening to you on YouTube, Facebook, or whatever, following you. If you don't change one of them, you've done nothing. You can have 2 people listening to you and they decide to change their lives. You have done more than anyone who has billions of followers. It is easy to follow and listen to people, but the most difficult thing is to change a life. That is what the spirit, that's how you nourish your spirit, is that you share love. You know how to treat people. You treat people with respect. You give people love so that you can receive love. Don't ask for respect if you cannot give respect. Don't ask for love if you cannot get it. Don't kill if you don't want to be killed. The spirit is what controls you. So if you don't feed it with good deeds, that is what the first reading says. The first reading say, when you get to your judgment time, they will take your deeds, they will test it on a fire. If they are equal to precious stone, they will pass the fire on the other side. But if they are equal to straw and wood, it will burn right there. But you will still be saved. Why? Because you tried to do good deeds. But it will be as though you were going through fire. That's what we call in the Catholic Church purgatory. Meaning what? You go through your saving time. That means you are transitioning to heaven by purification of the fire. That's what Paul is talking about. And this is where the text of purgatory comes from. Paul is very clear on that. How do I feed my soul? Second thing. The soul is connected to your emotions, your mental state. And I always like to take the example of relationships. In this one, I'm going to use the example of polygamy. The reason I know that in African culture, we accept polygamy, okay? So it's not a sin. Polygamy is not a sin. It's just not accepted by the church. The church does not accept it because it is not something that was commanded by God. Human being chose to do that. And God said, you know what, if that's what you want to do, that's fine. But here are the rules I'm going to give you if you want to practice that. Because God only created one man and one woman. So Christianity will not accept that. Okay? You will not get married in polygamous marriage in Christianity. No. So, using that as emotional, when you decide that you want to take 2 wives, the very first thing you are affecting is your emotions. Because dealing with one woman, not that women are bad, but dealing with one woman is not an easy thing when you want to give them freedom, right? So when you do that, you are already hurting your emotions, because what is going to happen is you are going to have to deal with double your problems. And every single time that you are dealing with this, you are starving your emotions. Every single time you have to deal with a problem here, you have to deal with arguments, you have to deal with all these different things. You are starving your emotion. That's why God does not commend that. God told the king, you must not take 2 wives so that you will not fall into sin. Okay? It is dangerous to put your emotion into play. When you separate from someone, use that time to, if you decide to leave, leave. Change everything. Change the paint in your house. Buy a new car. Get a new house. Do whatever you have to do so that you don't starve your emotions. It's very important. So that you do not put your emotions into starvation. You must know when to be angry. To be angry is not a sin. But if you're constantly angry, you're starving your emotions. You must know when to calm down. You must know when to deal with people. Because the starvation of the emotion will bring death from stroke, high blood pressure, and those things. That is when you're starving your emotions. You must know when to do certain things, how to react to things. And if it's difficult for you, do meditation. For example, in YouTube, they will show you how Indians know how to do meditations. You take time to sit down, cross your leg, and then breathe about 5 minutes, if you can do it 10 minutes, is very helpful for your mental state. Reducing your stress. That's how you live your emotion. People who live to 81 years old, they knew how to control that. Because if you don't know how to control it, you will end up in a very bad state. You will not end at that age. You may die prematurely. Emotions is what is associated to your soul. When you are in your bed, your sick bed, and they say you're in a coma, the only thing that still keeps you alive is your soul. Your spirit is gone somewhere. And when you stay with somebody who's in a coma in bed, they ask you to speak to that person so that the person can hear you and come back, because the spirit is gone. Now, the soul's its role is to follow the spirit. So when you speak to the soul is listening and is calling back the spirit. That's why you keep speaking to the person. You remind that person of good times. You don't remind that person of stressful time. That's why when you go see a doctor, they tell you, if you are in an argument with someone, don't show up there. If you are someone who brings stress to people, don't show up. Have people who bring less stress. They remind you of good times, so that when you're in your state of death or state of sickness, from the worst state, that they can call your spirit back to join with your soul and restart the journey of life. That is how you learn how to feed your soul. Because if you don't feed your soul, then, like I said, the death that is caused by the soul is stroke, high blood pressure, and things like that. Then the third and final thing is how to feed your body. You hear doctors say this all the time. They say what you eat, know when to eat, what to eat, and how to eat. It's very important. You become what you eat. If you eat bad food, you will become. It will affect you, even emotionally, mentally, and even spiritually. There are people who don't eat well, so they can't breathe well, and they're always angry. You see how those three parts of the body, they connect to each other. When one is sick, it contaminates the other one. Learn what to eat. Water. They talk to you about water all the time. Water is a source of life. When you don't replace water with anything else. You cannot replace water. You take beer or juice no. What food does in your body does the same thing when you sit it outside for 2, 3, 4, 5 days. It's going to spoil. It's spoiled in your body. The exercise we do every day is to eat and then drink water to push all that food out. Because all the food is supposed to do is to strengthen your immune system. But when you eat the type of food that stays in your body, all you drink is beer. Oh, I've drank something liquid. Beer is the same thing as food. It goes in there and evaporates in your body. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't push anything. Water is the source of life. If you see what water does in the Bible, it's the same thing water does in your body. I talked about a lady that was 47 years old when I went to Cameroon, and she was having problems for 2 years. She went to the doctor. They couldn't see what was going on with her. All I asked her to do is to do a water cure for 9 days. The bottle of Supermont that we use, the bigger bottle, I asked her to drink that per day, the entire bottle. By the time she got to the 4th day, because she couldn't breathe well, by the time she got to the 4th day, she was able to go back to the doctor. They found out that she had tuberculosis. They couldn't see anything for 2 years. By the time she got to the 6th day of that cure, she was running up the stairs. And I explained to her, water is the source of life. What water does is that it gives you back life. Because the very first verse of the Bible says, the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. So we don't know when water was created. So everything was born out of water. God had to part the water to bring about earth. From the earth, animals, human beings, plants. That is why when a baby is inside the womb of a mother, what happens first before she gives birth? Water breaks. It means what? The baby is kept alive with water. It is water that keeps you alive. You must drink those bottles of water, the ones right here on the table, at least 3 per day if you want to see yourself having a lot of energy. There are people who say, and that's true, is that when you come back from work, if you take a shower, you will feel a lot of energy. That's the same thing water does inside your body. It brings you back to life. Water is the source of life. Know what to eat. I'm not going to go into the details of that. Your doctors tell you that all the time. Know what to eat. When to eat. You don't eat at any time. You don't eat at any time. When you go to bed at night, you know you have to go to bed at night. Eat at least 2 hours before bedtime. At least 2. That is like the stretch, like that's, you're stretching 2. I would say 3-4 hours. But if you must eat, eat something very light. Cereal, for example, that doesn't have too much sugar. There are some of you, maybe here tonight, when you go to bed, you have cramps in the middle of the night. It's because you don't drink water. You probably don't have enough salt. If you drink a glass of water before going to bed, you will no longer have cramps. Because your body is working at night. And when it comes down to night, it's just like when everything is calm, because when we are moving, we don't give the time for the body to regenerate. So it is there waiting for us to go to bed. And then when we go to bed, it starts to work. But when it gets there, it's just like washing this entire room when everybody is gone. You need water to do that. If you only sweep, there are parts that you will not be able to remove. So what the body does is exactly that. But when it gets there and it doesn't find water, it becomes a problem. That is why you get cramps. You wake up in the middle of the night and you have cramps in your feet. Sometimes you don't feel your foot. Sometimes your arm. But if you drink a glass of water before going to bed, some people say, I don't want to get up to go urinate. Let me tell you why it's important and it's good for you to get up in the middle of the night to go use the restroom, is that if you were having a cardiac arrest in the middle of your sleep, that would help you if you wake up in the middle of the night. There are people who die in their sleep. There are people who die in their sleep, but if you wake up in the middle of the night, I wake up at least 2-3 times at night because I drink a lot of water. So it's very important to understand how to feed your body. If you don't feed your body well, the death that comes with that is diabetes, is cancer, and all these other things. So tonight I gave you the example of what you must do to live a long life. Now, Papa David, there are people who live in countries where they have the ability to do these things. You have to do more when you're here. They walk a lot when they are in Cameroon. The food that they eat is natural. They don't eat a lot of processed food. Now he comes from a generation where, nowadays things are different, but he comes from a generation where things were like that, and he was able to maintain that in his life. That is why his death is simply a natural death. The family said, he was never sick. Can you imagine that nowadays? How many of us have gone to the doctor? Here's a man, 81 years old, he lives his life. He was working with herbs and natural remedies to help other people. And he ended up his life living so well that he was able. Why? Because he knew how to feed his soul. He knew how to feed his spirit. Because I know when the family comes to testify tonight, they will tell you how good of a man he was. Trust me. If you maltreat people, you cannot get to that age. That I can promise you that. Because karma will come for you. That's the bottom line. You cannot die a natural death after mistreating other people. You have to die the death that is caused by the spirit. Killing, accident, you name it. That is what it is. That man dying in a natural life knows how to feed his soul. So if you want to live a long life, that is what you must do. Know how to feed your soul, know how to feed your spirit, and know how to feed your body. Because the body is the temple of the Holy Spirit. Remember, there's a difference between what God gives and what human beings give. God gives life. That's why everybody is born the same way, the same from women. Even Jesus came from a woman. Babies. We are all born the same way. So it shows you that God is not discriminating. He's not a discriminator. Everybody the same way. The air that we breathe, it flows in the rich people's neighborhood, in the poor people's neighborhood. Everything is the same. The sun shines in rich people's neighborhood and poor people's neighborhood. That's what God gives. But what human beings gives always discriminatory. That's why you have poor people and rich people, because God doesn't give money. That comes from human beings. The internet will never be everywhere in the world because that comes from human beings, and human beings are limited beings. And that is why I will finish by saying this. Death is not come from God. It comes from human beings. That's why people die young. People die old. People sometimes die by accident. People that you see how it's different. You can die at any age. If it was God who has given death to human beings, we will all die at the same age, just like we are all born the same way. That is how God operates. God gives talent. That's why everybody has talent. You use your talent to flourish in life. Amen.